Welcome to the S2 Cognition Podcast. S2 is the official cognitive evaluation in sports, from youth to pro, where athletes and coaches build to win.
Welcome to the S2 Cognition Podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Hunter, and today Scott and I are joined by private basketball development coach Drew Dunlop. Drew trains players in the NBA like Tyler Herro, elite college basketball players, all the way down to the youth market. And in this episode, we discuss the evolution of player development, where it was, where it's moving to, what we're seeing, emphasizing the shift from traditional mechanical training to a focus on decision-making in in-game-like environments. He highlights the importance of understanding each player's unique cognitive and physical traits, integrating feedback from practice, and creating constraints that foster creativity and adaptability based on how each athlete processes split-second information. The discussion also touches on the joys of coaching and the significance of making practices feel like real games to enhance player performance. For those that are new here, welcome. We're excited to have you here today, and for those that are returning listeners, we always appreciate your support. To help us continue our growth, we ask that you subscribe, rate, review the show. Thanks again to Drew for taking time to join us out of his busy schedule. We hope you enjoy. So Drew, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you being here. Work with NBA guys, top college guys, as well as some youth guys that are around the Milwaukee area. Your focus is truly on development. So for all the listeners, all the coaches out there, most of this conversation is really going to hone in the development aspect of decision-making, specifically in the game of basketball with Drew. But I wanted to start there. 5 years ago in the development space, I'm sure you were still working as a development coach. How different is it now? What is your focus in development? How much more do you know than you knew then? Take this anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, I think, 5 years ago, COVID hits. I pick up Rob Gray's How We Learn to Move book, and just overnight, just 180 to change. It went from how I grew up, a coach being the center of it, right? You're telling them the solutions, you're telling them what to do, how to do it, every little detail. And then I read that book, and I remember going into the sessions the very next day. I read it like in an entire day. I read the book, could not put it down. First time ever. I wish I could have done that in school, but so I read it, and just everything resonated with me. And so I went in the next day, and we totally flipped the script in the workout. And it is all about just presenting problems, stepping out of the way, allowing each athlete to kind of go about it their own way, and then, observing and giving feedback. And I think that's kind of, that was the genesis of where we're taking this now. But I think the big change is just understanding that every athlete brings kind of their own skill sets, their own abilities, capacities, and layers it into what's demanded of them in the session, in the game. And there's that part where collectively they have to work with other teammates, but also they have to interact with it themselves at an optimal level.
I think that's right. Everything focused, right? I think we had this huge shift, and we've talked ad nauseum about it on this podcast, this shift from like one-on-one dribbling, mechanical work, and getting into my bag, and then all the other stuff is like, hey, we still got to know how to play together. And so I think that's been this tremendous, we shifted really far one way, and you're starting to see everything shift kind of back, and it's like, hey, we got to play with people to make good decisions on the basketball court.
Yeah, I mean, at any given point, you have 4 other teammates, and there's going to be, 4 other defenders in the mix. And so now space is the thing, and understanding how to interact. And if you don't have the ball, what do you do, right? And I think that's the main focus. Most workouts are 1-on-0, ball in hand. But in reality, most players are not going to be in that situation. And you really have to understand how to impact the game and be a winning factor.
Yeah, and to separate yourself as a coach, to kind of piggyback off what you just described, what is it that you're starting to focus on as you continue to develop and see these guys change and get better? Like, what has become your focus as a player development coach?
What I kind of think of as the edge for each player is understanding this might be a workout of, let's say, 6 players. But again, trying to individually optimize each player's interaction, right? So what one player is doing differently, let's say, is off the dribble, drives, is going to be different from player 2. And it's understanding, okay, what kind of feedback can I give each of them to optimize how they're interacting within that right now, currently? And that takes a lot. Like that's a lot of observation. That's a lot of, staying calm and just trying to take it all in and understand what's the best thing I can say right now in bullet points, short and sweet, to get them to maybe look at it a little bit different. And so that's what we're focused on, is maximizing individual interactions, even though it's a team game.
Give us some examples of how you've, even if they're, basic examples of how you kind of structured and set things up, and how you explained what you did, and explain to the athletes what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Simple enough. I mean, we were just talking about ball handling. Okay, I can sit there, I can teach you how to do a crossover, and I can teach you the height of the dribble and how your weight needs to shift. Or I can put a defender in front of you. Now, it may not be a totally live defender, but it's opposition, it's taking space, and it's going to give you feedback when you do make the move. Can that defender access the ball? Can they get to it? And just simple as that, right? So we just started doing our warm-ups. We partnered them up. All right, you're going all the way down the end of the other baseline, but maybe it's okay. You get 3 change of directions, or you have to attack space, get back out, create a pocket, and then re-engage. But instead of me sitting there telling them, okay, this wouldn't work, this is what you need to do, you need to put your left foot here, I'm just going to put a body in front that's trying to oppose them, reroute them, make it as difficult as possible, and then they can figure it out. And one player may be, really relying on between the legs, and another guy's maybe working on more bumps and trying to take tight angles because they're stronger. And it's just, that's like the beauty of it. Like, each player, again, gets to interact individually at an optimal level for themselves. Another thing is finishing. We used to be really big on, okay, throw the ball out to the elbow, you're going to catch it, you're going to work a pivot, you're going to drive, and now I want you to work a, extended finish away from the body. I can have you do that, but the context is totally gone. Zero. Now, instead, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm just going to add a coach defender down there with a stick. And now as you drive, okay, if they step in front of you, you have to change your line. If they stay to the side and you see that you got space, now you get to it. But now as you finish, you're going to figure out, is the defender's hands vertical? Are they reaching over? Like, where's the window to try and finish through? And it's just as simple as that. And it's just so much more value to that, because again, the context is there and each rep is just slightly different. Even though if you zoom out and you're sitting on the side, it looks the same.
Yeah, and naturally, each of the individual, just to kind of piggyback off what Scott said, naturally, as those players, going back to your crossover example, when you go 90 feet or go all the way down the baseline and back, some of those players are going to pick up what those moves are to lead to success, and some of them aren't. How do you help coach the players that, it may not be clicking as fast?
That really that's the feedback part, right? And that's where, okay, maybe they let's say we put them in groups of 3. So one player goes, they're obviously struggling. They sit out, they're waiting for their next turn. That's where we're kind of going to be in the ear, like, hey, I really, I noticed that you relied on the crossover a lot. What do you think are some other ways you could work around that? Like, what are some alternative options? Have you thought about this? Right. And I think that's where there's this misconception that if you coach with the CLA background, the ecological dynamics, that as a coach, you can't ever tell them what a solution could be. Right. And I think that's the value. The coach, whatever level you coach at, you have expertise. You understand what works, what doesn't. You've seen the game, you study it, you know the ins and outs. So it's taking that, reframing it, and allowing yourself to be the guide with the player to say, hey, have you thought about maybe between the legs? It's tighter, more ball protection, allows you to, get a foot in front, and maybe you can, own your line a little bit better. There's nothing wrong with that, because particularly at the highest levels, you don't have a week, 2 weeks, a month for a player to get something, right? You're always preparing for that next game, and there's pressure to win, and there's pressure to keep your job. And, it's a money fueled business. It's results. And sometimes you need to be able to speak to that player, to walk them through what that could look like. And then, okay, get back in, let's do it. Right. So I think that's just kind of the art of it. And sometimes you have more time, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you got to speak on the fly quicker. But ultimately, like, that's going to be the next money ball within player development and training. It's how well can you individualize the environment for each player working with themselves, working under your principles of play, and also, rep to rep, how fast can we make adjustments?
And that starts by knowing your player from the outset, right? So you have to know how they're wired. What do their shooting mechanics look like? What are their biomechanical efficiencies? What are blah, 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 blah. I mean, you could go into a million different things. And that's where I wanted to start this. I mean, we spent a lot of time on mechanics already, but this movement into the shift into the focus of player decision making in the game and how you are adding unique into your drill concepts. The first part of that is getting to know your player. So understanding where's this player going to be elite at, his best strengths in the decision-making process. Okay. And where are the inconsistencies? And how can we sort of tap into, based on the knowledge we know and based on the reference sheet and how he's wired, these are the 3 or 4 areas that are really going to give him the hardest time to be consistent in his decision-making. And then how we layer and set up drills off that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I would start, honestly, and this is a question for you guys, how do you define decisions? Like, what is a decision to you?
That's a great question. When we watch the game, right, you hear the media describe, we'll just take it to football. Quarterback makes a decision. He says, oh, man, he's a good decision maker, or that was a good decision. And that's it. That's all that was discussed. But we joke all the time. What about scheme? In what circumstances? Again, what players? Like, they may have worked here, but it might not have worked there. So it can't just always be, yes, that he's a good decision maker, and that's how it's described. But Scott, I mean, you can dive into this way more. When we look at this from a decision-making element, those are kind of the systems that we start with, right? Understanding the circumstance, the scheme, the fit, design.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you talk about decision making, obviously, more often than not, where someone has observed an outcome, and then they infer or deduce from that outcome, oh, that was a good decision, that was a bad decision. If they turned the ball over, that was a bad decision. If they made a play and made an incredible pass at the last moment, that was a great decision. But decisions happen at different levels, and so there are visual decisions you have to make. Even deciding what you're paying attention to in any given moment is a decision, right? And what you're ignoring or what you're leaving out, or when you shift your attention, how are you broadening your attention to see the whole court, or are you focusing in on a very specific cue that you're looking for in the person in front of you? Those are decisions. And then you've got decisions at the level of, recognizing what you're seeing, recognizing shifts, recognizing schemes and formations, if you will, and knowing what to do, connecting what you see to what you know. And then you've got decisions out on the motor side. Do I act? Do I delay my movement? Am I going to hesitate? Am I going to, how do I time my movement to block this shot? Do I control this impulse? Do I stop and redirect at the last second because I'm going up for a layup and then the lane is blocked and I got to move the ball to the alternative hand and making an incredible finish in an alternative way? Those are all decision points. And so when we talk about decision making, you've got to understand the environment in which you're operating, but you also have to understand the cognitive skills and systems that player brings to the court as well. It's an interaction between the environment and this person's decision-making capabilities and capacities and tendencies and vulnerabilities and sources of inconsistencies. That's how I would start to think about decision-making.
Yeah, that's a great definition. And I think in basketball, more often than not, I don't think coaches and trainers take time to think about that. Like, what is a decision? What constitutes a decision? And kind of listen to you guys both speak. It's like the baselines are there's multiple options for action. And then that player has agency. So they can choose to or reject to make that action. And I think when you start applying that to training, design, and how you're running practices, that's so powerful. Right. It's just understand that baseline. There's multiple options and they have agency. So in reality, when you're talking about decision making, it's much more than just the traditional, catch it, shoot it, drive it, pass it, right? Like there's a whole lot more in play. It's, do I stay in this space? Do I cut? Do I throw a pass fake? So the levels of details to this are infinite. And so it's just understanding that as a coach, if I want to incorporate decisions, I need to first present problems that, again, multiple options, and that player has agency. There's different ways to solve that problem. So that's how I think of it.
It's funny. We've had a few interactions with some coaches who have really embraced like constraints-led approach and the ecological approach, but they have thrown out in their mind, for whatever reason, any appreciation that there are individual differences in how athletes process and take in information. And there's even a little bit of this tension where some are pitting, the cognitive processing systems versus the ecological, the environment. And for a lot of us that study these systems and these processes, we don't see the conflict. The ecological approach is critical because you are operating in very specific environments with very specific constraints and multiple opportunities for solutions. That said, individuals are wired differently. Individuals process differently. And where do we get our constraints? It's either going to be trial and error, or it can be informed by how we know constraints push around decision-making in the lab. Like I always joke, I can bring anybody into my lab and make you feel just woefully impulsive. Even with you trying not to be impulsive, I can make you do things and react by putting certain constraints and certain variables in place. And that's where we learn about constraints. That's where we learn about how to manipulate the environment in very specific ways to push your decision-making systems to be more proficient or to be more vulnerable. And so equipped with those insights, we can now walk onto the court. And we love constraints-led approach. We love the fact that we're getting training back into the environment. That's been kind of a thrust of S2 for a long time, that we need to get away from brain training, training it in just this context-free environment and expecting it to transfer. But the constraints and the ideas about how to set up conditions and problems and manipulate using probabilities, unpredictabilities, uncertainties to shape the experience, to make an athlete more dynamic in the context of basketball, that's where the two kind of marry together and are bridged.
Yeah. And it's really, athletes bring so much more to the table, right? When you got 5 guys in a team, right? All of them different movement abilities. Like you said, their visual strategies, how they see things, what they don't see, injuries, form of life. How did they grow up? Like, what system did they grow up under? All that stuff plays a part into how they are interacting at that moment.
You have had access to some of the evaluations that we get in and look under the hood, right? See how a guy is wired to process from the visual side to the motor control side. And you've had the benefit of having that information and embedding that into your constraints-led approach to training. How does the cognitive inform? Let's get real here with how we merge these together, because you seem to have found that sweet spot where you take this information processing understanding of this individual and merge it into constraints. How has that shaped the way you build and design constraints when you know something about this guy's vulnerabilities or the things he does well?
Oh, it's unbelievable the value of that. And most of the players name, but recently we had one. And one of the big key takeaways was this player would rather wait and allow the situation to become as close to perfect as possible than act quickly. And that was everything. That was so immediately, like, that was the one thing that jumped out within that segment for us, that we knew anytime we were getting into something where he had to organize the chaos and the disorder, we put a decision clock on it where he had to go fast, and we wanted mistakes and we wanted to be messy.
Yeah.
And that just became the thing that he would even say after work is like, I hate that. It's like, I hate that. He's like, I love it, but I hate it. And I knew like that right there became, a dial that we turn up. And that's something that in my philosophy, we're saying there, what are you turning up? What are you turning down at any given point in your environment? What are you trying to amplify and emphasize? What are you trying to turn down? And that became a knob that we turned all the way up. And it was not pretty for sure. There was a lot of frustration, but it's also understanding like this is going to be the biggest ROI. This is the big rock that we're going to attack, and we're going to leverage this. So it meant everything to be able to have that and understand how they interacted with information in the environment in real time.
And I'm sure off that, he probably got done with the drill, because you guys are doing drill with a couple of bodies, right? Maybe just you and him, maybe 2 or 3 bodies. Yeah. And he's like, dude, it feels like the game. I guarantee you, he felt like, Dad, this is the conflict I feel when I play. And you're trying to turn that guy up as much as you can.
Yeah, environment's everything. And, even to the point where you start to, you go over 2 seconds to make a decision. That's, whatever. It could be 10 push-ups or for instance, our guys were betting on a steak dinner every week. And it's like, you had so many to get to. And if you hit that threshold, you're buying dinner. So, it's just how do you engage pressure? How do you add pressure, competition? How do you make it feel like the game? And that's the edge. The more you make it feel like the game, the more it's going to translate. Most training looks like the game. Scenarios, situations, all that. Make it feel like the game. And I guarantee you're going to see unbelievable results for the guys.
And that's what we're doing is we're helping you understand where to press and where to push and be more. And it's like, man, that ROI, the faster ROI of like, man, we already know where to focus. If we have tunnel vision, if we take longer to search and find our target, if we get distracted, okay, these are the drills that we're going to go execute in. This is how we're going to set it up. This is where we're going to press. We're going to press on the number of players you have to track, or we're going to press on the space in which you have to track them. Then we're going to add some distractors. Then we're going to take them away. And then we're going to add more distractors or different distractors. And just see how the player continues to grow. And the whole goal is to make the practice feel like the game, so that way when the game comes, he knows, man, I've already been here before. I've already worked this. I understand what this feels, right? That feel is that big word that everyone describes but can't define. And so how do you get him to feel what it's going to feel like when they play? And I won't say the school's arch rival, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating if I can actually tap into something you said earlier, right? So you said some of these coaches don't even understand. And we had this conversation with an NBA coach, and it said he had really great decision complexity and perception speed. So he can perceive what's happening really quickly, and then he can load all these decisions on what to do based on what he's seeing. And so when we asked him, hey, how did you know like when to cut? Because he would talk about how he's just a great cutter. He knew when to cut. He knew when to backdoor people. He knew all these things. He knew when to cut to create space. And he was like, well, I don't really read anything. I just do it. And we were like, no, you have to read something, because if you know when to cut, you're obviously reading something. And so it was first even getting them to understand, man, that like you are doing something. And so once coach realized, oh, so I just need to point out these things of understanding, okay, this player struggles with that. But if I can tell him when he's supposed to cut, what to look for, when to cut, that's it. Yeah, that might help him.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, okay, coaches are experts. All right. So be the expert and understand what is triggering that decision, right? What is the specifying info? And then put that in your training. And it's that simple. Like you're just reframing your position with all that.
Right.
Yeah, the constraints-led approach is not, this dynamic approach to training is not passive. Everything you just described is the opposite of passive. Right. You have to construct, you have to think, what's our scheme, what's our design, what's our intent here, what are the cues, what are the key players we need to put in play, what are the variations that can run off of this particular set, and we've got to create those sets and those constraints that allow this player to become more dynamic. When we always say you're building to create stability so that you don't have to sit and think to decide what to do. You want some automaticity, and you just see and react like this player said. But you also need to build brains that are flexibility, athletes that are flexible. And so those would seem to be at odds, but they're not. You're building stable decision-making structures, but you also got to bake in dynamic drills that create flexibility and adaptability because things are so different. Every context, every situation is a little bit different. And so it's interesting. We're building stability and flexibility simultaneously.
Yeah, that's the beauty of all of this. And I wanted to ask you this, Drew, because obviously we've now talked about the evaluation, how it helps you understand it. How would you say this unlocks some of the creativity? Because, right, you and I met, we had a conversation, we reviewed the report, we discussed some concepts that we give you from our side of, hey, this is kind of where I would push, but I'm not Mr. Hoop expert. I'm not going to tell you what drills. You'd laugh at me if we did. We never do that. We come in and understand the concepts and then let you, and man, you sent me all those videos back. Just from a baseline, describe how you felt it unlocked some of the innovation, the creativity that you had to kind of take this and run with it. Because I think you've done a wonderful job.
Yeah, I think it's like anything, right? If you have too many options, it's pretty difficult to choose. But if you know certain areas to spend your time in, lock in on, focus in, really easy, because that ultimately is the power of constraints, right? I've got these 3 things that I know are going to return big time. What are we going to do? And it was really easy. And I think that's credit to your guys' system too, just in how, one, how you have it laid out, but 2, how you have the support after the test and the evaluation to understand better some of the variables that you can push on as the coach. So that was the easy part. I mean, it was a lot of fun to sit on that call afterwards and then thinking through like games prior last year and even workouts prior to the summer before the evaluation, understanding, like the light goes off. Like you knew what was happening there. So yeah, it was really easy. And I think the creative part, once you know what to look at, that's again where the expertise comes in, because now you can play with that. It's going to be a big return.
Can you give an example of a player where you engaged in this process that you've evolved and developed, and you saw just striking, tangible results in their play in real games, and you were just almost to the point where you're like, gosh, I knew he was getting better at this, but goodness, this is happening in real time in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, last summer, starting to work with Tyler Herro again, he bought into it so fast, and you could see week to week. It's just how he was going about organizing and picking his spots and understanding, what's going to be functional in that situation. It was unbelievable to sit back and just kind of watch this player just every week add a little bit more. And then you fast forward to the last season and just watching him make plays, both for himself and teammates. Like he just was out there just playing at his pace, never getting sped up, always keeping as many options open as possible. And it was fun to watch that, because at the end of the day, the credit is always on the player.
Yeah.
Like they're trusting us to come in and help them create, environments for them to go play their game based off of their role, their abilities, all that. So the credit always goes to these players that are willing to buy into that, willing to fail, willing to get some feedback and make that the training aspect kind of messy, but then the transfer is in the game, it's organized. They've been there, they've seen that, they've done that, they've experienced that, and they have all this experience to play off of to help them navigate in real time at the highest level of the game.
And even that confidence that once all that work's gone into it. I mean, talk to me about like entering this offseason. What was Tyler's I bet it's through the roof. He feels great. You enter another offseason of workouts, and that's just, you're just stacking those days on top of each other, leading to that confidence of the player. I think is tremendous.
Yeah, it's ultimately. I mean, I would say progress is the greatest motivator. Like when you start seeing it and you start feeling what you're doing out there, it's like, oh, why would you go back to,
Right.
a different way? You're just going to double down.
Yeah, I will say whoever's listening that we had a session where we got on the phone, a web call with Drew, and you showed us some of the drills and the designs and the progressions, and I mean it was incredibly impressive. I mean, just the thinking and the creativity and the innovation and taking concepts and just seeing how your mind was weaving the environment with the cognitive elements of the players to work on different dimensions of their play. It was it's like watching an artist. It was great. Yeah,
I appreciate that. It's kind of funny. I failed art class in high school, so different context.
I think we all did.
I was even going to add what was also so fun about that was also your willingness. I mean, literally willingness to say, hey, we want to press on like search here more. How could I do that? And it's like, okay, well, just this is how you tweak that. And then you go back in your lab and you just add an element of, okay, forcing them to make another decision off this. So it's just fun to go see what you've tried to do and then like not settling and then continue to push and say, okay, well, I want to work on distraction control. How can I add a little bit more distraction in this drill? I think was also pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely one to continue to try and push and try to get outside the box, even with success or failure. It's just constantly trying to evolve a little bit. So you guys, your product makes it easy.
We're just putting some constraints in your world so you can be more efficient.
There you go.
What a theme of this call. Okay, yeah. Drew, we're moving into the last segment, 3 random / funny questions. What is an element of being a private development basketball coach that like most of us from the outside, like we don't even consider? Can be good, can be just hey, you guys haven't thought about this.
Well, I think like any small business, private basketball coach entails a whole lot more than just on the court, right? You have your business ops, you have cleaning, you have dealing with clients and parents and bad Google reviews, good Google reviews. I mean, the whole spectrum. You're doing it all, and I think it's the only way I know, and I wouldn't do it any different. I still love cleaning the floor. I still love picking stuff up just as much as I do, well, I don't love emails, but I think there's lists for sure that I enjoy doing, and there's some that I don't.
Yeah. And what was going to the second question, best moment on the floor that you got to be a part of live?
Probably being at All-Star Weekend last year, watching Tyler be part of that and win the 3-point contest. That was pretty cool.
Were you just jumping up and down?
Yeah, it was a surreal thing. It's like you're there, but you also can't believe it. And I just remember after the 3-point contest, getting to hold this trophy, and I was just like, this is crazy. What a surreal moment. How far we've come. So that was really cool, seeing someone's hard work pay off and get the success they deserve.
Yeah, probably a little emotional too, right?
For sure. Yeah, a lot went into that. Absolutely.
And last question here. What makes the game so special now, right? It's so much fun to kind of crap on the game and what it's not what it used to be. Give me your side of, man, there's actually some really cool things happening here. Give me some positivity in this podcast.
Well, I always say that there's never bad days in hoops. And regardless of what it is, like this is a game. We played this as kids. We're making a living off of it, the joy of it. Like people can't believe that I wear basketball shorts and t-shirts 365 days a year. It's some people own a bunch of suits. I have a whole closet full of Nikes. So no complaints over here.
That's awesome, man. Drew, thank you so much for joining us. That's Drew Dunlop, private basketball development coach. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully some coaches got to listen to this, understand a little bit more of where we can push, how we can be more efficient in our push to make and just push the game of basketball and players forward.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Any coach, I would say, look into S2 Cognition. It's an unbelievable tool. It's going to make you a better coach. It's going to help your players get better, and that leads to winning. So
appreciate that, Drew. I'll see you next month, baby. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the S2 Cognition Podcast. If you like the content we're putting out, please subscribe with that plus sign at the top of your app, leave a review about the episode, and share it with a few friends. You can follow us on Twitter at S2 Cognition and Instagram at S2.cognition. If you'd like to get in touch with the program or show, please visit our website at s2cognition.com/podcast. Thanks again for listening to the S2 Cognition Podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Hunter, signing off for now. We will talk to you soon.